Hey, how you doing? This is Kitch, and you are watching me play Factorio. In the last couple of episodes, we have been covering a little bit of the circuit network. I've got some red and green wire we've covered, the different networks you can set up with that, and the basic logic you can set up on things like inserters and stuff like that. We covered a little bit on combinators and their basic functionality. And we also went over some of the quirks that you can experience, like the time delays and the separate networks, when dealing with combinators. And I want to get a little bit deeper into it and take a look at some contraptions you can make with combinators. But first, I want to take a second and talk a little bit about signals. Up until this point, I've been dealing a lot with what I consider like the hard-coded signals coming out. What I mean by that is that this chest has fish in it. And if we look on the poll, we're getting fish. So if I've been dealing with fish, I would do something like, if the fish signal is less than 0 or greater than 0 output, some kind of other thing. I don't know. Fish. Something like that. But I've been dealing with these hard-coded values, the actual item that we're dealing with. And in reality, I don't like to do that very often because I am a software developer and I like to write something or make something once and have it useful in as many situations as possible. Luckily, Factorio gives us some tools in order to do that. And a lot of them involve signals. So let's take a look at this constant combinator. I'm doing an A and a B signal sending out. This is just, I used this in the last episode as well. But if you click on one of these and go to the last tab here, this signals tab, it gives you some basically generic variables that you can use whatever you want. Use them for whatever you want. You got 0 through 9, A through Z, and there's also colors. Now, colors can also be used to set the color of lights and some other things that I've seen in mods and signals, output colors, things like that. But for the most part, these are just generic variables that you can do whatever you want with. So you may take in, instead of reading this as fish, we may just use a combinator right here to do a pseudo mathematical operation. Where instead of reading the fish out, I want to take that fish count and add 0 to it and out that as maybe like C. Right, to represent the count of the items that are in that chest. That just may be one way you want to do that. Use the arithmetic combinator as a signal converter. That is perfectly fine. And there's also some special signals. They call them virtual signals, I believe. Let's take a look at those. There is, they only show up in certain areas on the combinators and in special spots where they can be used. But the decider combinator has them all. We have everything, we have anything, and we have each. And these act as kind of wildcards, and they all have a little bit different behavior. So the each signal here, I have it set, or sorry, everything signal, I have set to everything greater than 10. So this is going to evaluate every signal that comes into here. Currently we have 2 signals, A and B, coming in. And if A is greater than 10, and B is greater than 10, we are going to evaluate that to true and send out one pink signal in this case. Right now, that is evaluating to false. I have my light set to enable if the pink signal is greater than 0, and it's not because A and B are less than 10. If I crank up A to say, let's make you 11 or 20, that is not going to do anything because A is greater than 20, but B is not. If we come over here and crank B up to 20, we now get our light because every signal coming in here is greater than 10. This one, the next one here is anything. That's going to evaluate the signals coming in, both of them, and if either one of them is greater than this condition, we will output true or send out our output signal. If neither of them are, or we will not. So A is currently greater. Let's go ahead and take B down to 10 again. This one evaluates to false because B is no longer greater than 10. However, A is greater than 10, and it will go ahead and carry through. If we reverse that, we take A down to 10, or 9 even, and take B up to 20, that will evaluate to true as well. Let's go ahead and even those out. We'll take A down to 10. Each, in the context of the decider combinator, it actually works very similar to the anything in its result, I should say. It basically takes every signal coming in and evaluates it separately. In this case, let's go ahead and crank A up to 20. It's going to take A in and evaluate it, and if it's true, it's going to send it out. If it takes B coming in, and it's going to send that out as a true as well. And I think if we have this situation right here, yeah, we're sending out 1 true for each pink signal that comes in. So we get 2 output signals going out to specify that 2 of those inputs meet that criteria. Now back here, similar in the truth condition, but if we look at the output, we're only getting 1 signal, even though both of them meet that criteria. So it's basically like we're doing it. It's the exact same as if we had 2 combinators here for these 2 inputs coming in, going out. If we had 10 inputs, it'd be the same as if we had 10 combinators. Whereas this one would not function the same with 10 combinators, 1 for each individual signal. The each is also can be used in the arithmetic combinator, and I use this quite a bit. That is saying for each signal come in, do this operation on it. So you can see that I've got it set each signal times 2 and output. We have A and B both coming in at 20, and they are both going out at 40, which is yeah, what we'd expect. Another little quirk with these combinators is if I turn the signals off, it may be a little bit counterintuitive to you because it was to me at first. Everything greater than 10, I'm expecting all signals coming in here to be greater than 10. There are no signals coming in here. It's evaluating to true. That's just the way it works. If everything coming in is greater than 10, that will evaluate to false. Now, the anything one works more the way you would expect. There are no inputs coming in that are greater than 10, so it's going to evaluate to false by default if there are no signals. And the each, of course, same thing. There's nothing coming in, so it'll evaluate false. It's just the everything here that that doesn't seem logical since there are no signals coming in. None of them should be greater than 10, but it does have a default value that's specified in the tooltip. It is true when there are no inputs. So important things to keep in mind. I'm going to be using these a lot because they allow me to be more generic in my builds, and we will get to that right after the intro. All right, so these first couple are going to be fairly basic, a little bit more advanced than just running wire, but still basic nonetheless. Right there, I have a inserter and a couple of chests. Now, you may be familiar with the concept of the Requestor chest. They are right there. In that you can go through here with a Requestor chest. Let's try that one more time. And set a request. Say I want 100 fish. And the robots in the network will go out and deliver 100 fish into this chest for us. And we'll try to keep it stocked at that amount. Now, I don't have robots in the system or anything like that, so that's not going to occur. However, we can do the same thing with inserters and steel chests, or iron chests, or wooden chests, by using the circuit network. So let's see how we can go about doing this. First thing we need is going to be a signal for what it is that we are requesting. And a constant combinator is going to do very good for that because we can set whatever we want in here. Maybe we want to set, say fish. Maybe we'll want to request 10 fish. That sounds good. So there's our request that we want. We want 10 fish in this chest right here. Now, who's going to be responsible for that? This guy right here. So we need to hook up this signal to this inserter so that he is he knows how much fish he needs to move over. And we can set a condition on here, maybe something like fish is greater than 0 to turn him on, meaning that there are no fish in this chest. Or you have received a signal that we need to get fish, so you need to start grabbing stuff. But we have a problem with that in that if we put fish over here, he's just going to grab them and keep moving them. And he's going to go past the amount that we actually need, which is not what we want. And we probably want to go ahead and override his stack size as well. We always want the stack size to be a multiple of whatever it is you're trying to request. It just makes things, if you don't mind it going over or being a little bit under times if you're pulling out. Okay, so we've got one part here. We know how many fish we want, but we're not keeping track of how many fish that we've actually pulled out. Let's put a power pull here temporarily. We know we can get that count from right here, right? As we put fish in here, it's going to tell us how many fish are there. So this is the amount of fish we have. This is the amount of fish we want. So in order to make this all balance out, we need to subtract the amount that we have from the amount that we want, right? And we can do that with an arithmetic combinator. About the easiest way to do this is to wire your chest into the arithmetic combinator. We are going to take the signal coming out of the chest, that count of fish that we currently have in there, and we're going to take that input, or more generically, just each input that comes in, we're going to multiply that by -1 and then send it out. So this is going to be a negative number coming out, in this case, 28. So if we look up here, we now see our output signal is -28. That's how many we have. And if we take that and combine it with the amount that we're requesting, and all on the same network, that is going to be all we need in order to control how much stuff moves over. So let's go ahead and add some fish to this chest, and let's just watch what happens here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and he's done. Okay, so what are we doing here? We've got a signal of 10 coming into this combinator that is outputting as -10 and putting it out on this network where we are currently adding 10. So this 10, -10 coming out, and this 10 cancel each other out, which makes our fish signal 0 when it reaches the inserter. And this one is enabled when the fish is greater than 0, or anything is greater than 0. So this is like completely generic now. We can go ahead and copy and paste this over here. And let's say we don't want to do fish. We want to do, what do we want to do? Let's do iron ore. And we want, say, like 50 iron ore. We don't have to change anything else. We can go ahead and grab, I can't grab iron ore, can I? Let's do iron plates instead. Let's grab, I don't know, like 70 iron plates and put those in there. And he is going to get a moving. And he'll just keep going until all of those plates are done. And it'll work just fine. We don't have to change any variables on here. We don't have to change any variables on here. Everything is just set. We just have to set what our request is, just like a requester chest. All right, I use that a bit in some places. Basically with train loading and unloading. In the Impractical Factorio series, I was using a circuit like that in order to load sulfuric acid onto a uranium mining train, as well as the station unloading blueprint for like wall stations or supply stations uses that logic. That was actually designed by Cornosian. I modified it a little bit, but not too much. And it works out pretty well. Where are we at here? Yeah, that's going to be going on for a while. So we'll just leave that there. Over here, I have a bar setup. Now, I've seen some people set up progress bars and things like that, but a number of the implementations I've seen are very hard-coded to basically the amount of stuff they're looking to track or the amount of stuff that they have. But with just a little bit of circuits and some generic signals, we can generic up this a little bit. We want the quantity to be generic. You know, if it's a steel chest or a wooden chest or basically every chest on the network, we need to be able to account for that. So I'm going to throw a constant combinator in here to act as kind of like a configuration screen, a setting screen, if you will. And is similar to basically what we did with the constant combinator here. It's our setting screen for this particular circuit. And what I want to store in this is basically the stack size of whatever item we have. So in this case, it is raw fish, and they stack in groups of 100. And then I want another signal, maybe something generic. Let's see. I'm going to call it S for slot. That basically tells me how many slots are available in the current chest that I'm using. So that will make it adjustable for iron chests or even train cars, really. Or basically multiple chests throughout your whole network. So with those two variables, we can generic up this a bit and make it work for just about anything. Okay, so we want to do this as a percentage as well. I've seen people hard code values on these lights, and I don't think that is the best way to do it. The best way is, more generic way, I should say, is to convert this to a percentage and then display the percentage. So that way this bar will work no matter what your quantity is here. So let's do that. We want to take the total amount of space that we have, which can be achieved by multiplying these two values together, right? So let's do that real quick with an arithmetic combinator. We are going to take... let's see, each, and multiply it by actually let's take away that fish signal, and let's do S was for slots. It would be good to do that for stack size as well. Yeah, let's say S is our stack size, and we'll do B. I like that. Okay, stack size is going to be 100. And B, our buckets are going to be 48. That's how many buckets we have. That's a nice little computer term. That way we can set this to be S times B, and that will give us our total, which we will call T. All right. Fantastic. All right, now we also need the amount coming in, and we can read that directly from here, but we don't want the fish signal coming through. We want to convert that over to a generic thing. So we'll take each signal coming in. Let's add 0 to that and output it as A for amount. So we have the stack size, the buckets that we have to fill up. That gives us our T for total, and A is the amount that we currently have in our system. All right, so percentages, that is also a calculation. Usually we want to do the amount that we have divided by the total. And I think we still want to do that. Let's see, we want to take the amount we have, and we want to divide that by the total, and we want to output P for the percentage. Now, it's going to be a little bit weird, because right now we're getting 1, which is what we would expect, because our chest is 100% full. But if we take some of these out, our p-value is going to disappear, because it doesn't do floating point math, or decimal math, I should say. Anything with a decimal point is not going to work here. It only does integer, and if you're not aware, if it's less than 0, it's not going to come out. It's just going to round out to 0, and we're going to get a dead signal. The only way this is going to work is if we have a 100% full chest. So what we can do is just offset that, because we usually multiply the percentage by 100 to get a whole number. So if we just take like take the amount. Let's do that multiplication by 100 right here. And now we have 100, which is 100%. And let's remove some of these fish. Now we have 22%, 23%, 24%, etc., which is more like what we would like. All right, so there is our p-value. Now I went ahead and pre-set up this light bar before I started this video. Basically what I did is I set them up in groups of 4. So these 4, these 4, these 4, and set them up to a different value, a different p-value. So this one is enabled if p is greater than 0. All right. This one right here is, this group is available if p is greater than 10. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, all the way up to 90. And then these final 4 are 100%. So when it's all the way full, these guys, when p is 100, everything up to this point will be lit up. So let's go ahead and hook this guy up. I put a light bar on the outside too. This is just a border to make it a little bit easier to see. I don't know, the light colors in Factorio are a little bit jarring to me. I'm hoping as part of the graphical updates here coming soon that we get some updates to that because, yeah, they're a little bit much if you ask me. But nobody asked me. So let's see. Let's go ahead and we're going to take this P signal to go into these lights right here. We are currently at 84%. So this bar is basically at the point where P is greater than 80, but it's less than 90. Oh, it just went above 90. So we are right there. Actually, it might look a little bit better now that I look at it in hindsight. If we flipped that over like that. Can I get some more fish in my inventory? Submit. Then I could not. Okay, there we go. And let's see if we just carry this signal over to this network, we should get the same thing, but in reverse, right? Let's remove some fish. Let's remove some of these fish. Yeah, there we go. I don't know. I guess it depends on your preference. But it's easy blueprint, just flip upside down to change that. Okay, let's do a little bit more here. I'm gonna go ahead and take you, and you, because I've set these lights up to use colors. So I would actually like to color these bars based on a particular status. So if the count coming in, P, we're all generic variables at this point, so we can use the P variable here. If P is less than 10%, I want to output a red color. 10%, yeah, that's fine. Maybe, you know, yeah, no, set 15, 10. 10's reasonable. And let's see, if P is greater than 50%, I want to send out a green signal. Okay, so that's our logic. We need to take this P value and send it in as an input to this guy and this guy. Currently this one is outputting green because P is 100, which is greater than 50, which is what we would expect. And we want to take these outputs that come out and send them out here. All right, and since P is at 100%, we are getting a nice green light. If I come down here and I take all the fish out, we can see that P is now less than 10%. It's at 6, 7, and now our light is green or red. And when it bumps up here, it will it'll turn white. It'll turn white because we have some space in between 10% and 50% where nothing is happening. Now we can do a if P is less than 50 and P is greater than 10 logic with a bunch of decider combinators. That is certainly possible. But we can also read the outputs of these two guys and put that in the back of this combinator and say, if everything coming in is 0, meaning that we're not getting anything, we can go ahead and output that as yellow. And that'll set our bar to yellow until we get a signal in where it'll actually evaluate that, because this is going to evaluate true if there's nothing coming in, and currently nothing is coming in. So default is basically yellow for this guy, unless we get a green signal or a red signal, because we can't have both of them at the same time. That will come through, and this guy will kick in, and it'll turn off that yellow signal, and instead we'll get, in this case, the green signal, because that condition is met. So yeah, that's basically a couple of designs that we have here. We've got our little inserter-based requester chest, as well as our progress bar. Progress bar, would that be what you'd call that? I guess it could be, if you're talking about the progress we're currently at of filling up this chest, which is going rather slowly. We are currently at 80%. All right, fantastic. But there's a couple of builds. I wanted to do these first because we're not using a lot of trickery or anything like that, or any of these mechanics that we talked about. They're really kind of straightforward, just using basic combinator concepts. And this one in particular is nice because just like this setup over here, we can just snag a blueprint of this guy real quick and plonk him down. And, boy, could I get more fish in my inventory? Oh, look at that. Let's try this again. All right, we can take this and do that right there, which is what I meant to do. And let's not do fish. Let's do uranium 235. That sounds reasonable. And we basically just thrown this in here. Now it's going to start calculating. Now, what is uranium 235? Okay, it stacks in groups of 100 as well. Let's try something else. What stacks differently? You guys are stacks of 100. Let's see, wire. That sounds good. Wire stacks in groups of 200. So we need to basically adjust our size right here and say, okay, we're stacking in 200 now, and now that's going to reset everything, and it will go in accordance with that. If we wanted to add a second chest of wire, that's going to be fine. We'll need to actually increase our... We'll actually need to increase our bucket size. So instead of 48, it is now, that's going to be 96 is our bucket size. So we just need to adjust those two variables for how many ever chests we have here that we're loading, and what the stack size is, and this progress bar will work 100% of the time. I'll post a blueprint of this. I'll try to clean it up a little bit, maybe tighten up these combinators a little bit, and post a blueprint of that if it's something you want to check out. But thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. I've got a couple of more circuit designs I want to go over, and we'll do that in the next episode. So I will see you next time. Have a good one.